Welcome back to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs. We're talking with Chuck McKibben, and you wrote a book entirely about Mel Blanc. And again, the book is called Mel Blanc, The Voice of Bugs Bunny, ... and Me, Inside the Studio with Hollywood's Man of 1,000 Voices. And there's a foreword by Mel's son, Noel Blanc. You also got to do an interview with Bob Bergen. I've been reading about him, and he's hosted. In fact, he was a contestant. I'm a game show junkie like you. A contestant on Teen Week Wheel of Fortune back in 1980, when the show was hosted by Chuck Woolery, and the model and letter turner was Susan Stafford. And he also has done a lot of voiceover for Warner Brothers as various Looney Tunes cartoon characters. He said since 1990.
Well, he was the first man to replace Mel as they went back into production on some things. It had been a long time that Mel was not really hired routinely by Warner Brothers because around 1969 or so, I know the exact date somewhere, but they shut down Termite Terrace and no longer made, after about 800 some films, no longer made Looney Tunes Merry Melodies, which are interchangeable names, by the way. And so Mel was only doing for Warner Brothers promotional things, like the Bugs Bunny birthday call, where he recorded with me over 600 individual greetings by name to children. So one of my earlier jobs there at the MBA Studios, Mel Blanc Audio Media, was, and previously had been known as Mel Blanc Associates, by the way, and you will find almost nothing about either online. It was an unknown part of Mel's life, in fact, that he ran a studio. And it was a fabulous production facility using lots of Hollywood stars as voice people. In the earliest days when Hollywood people would say, hey, it's not slumming to do a network TV commercial. You know, who opened that door up was Sir Laurence Olivier, the Polaroid. When Laurence Olivier recorded a Polaroid commercial, every other actor in the world said, well, if the greatest actor in the world, the greatest Shakespearean can do that, I can. Who am I, you know? And so you had Jim Rockford himself, you know.
James Garner, I remember those commercials very well.
Right. And so all the big Hollywood stars wanted to get in on that. And we were right there at that time. And the unique voice was big. Now, Casey was one of three guys we knew of doing what Noel Blanc called the California crackle. That's this cranky kind of voice, you know, like keep reaching for the stars and keep your feet on the ground. So basically, there was John Bartholomew Tucker in New York, JBT, who, the Hoover Dirt Devil, gets all those little cracks and crevices that you can't get into with your big vacuum cleaner.
In fact, John Bartholomew Tucker hosted the last 2 years of the NBC weekend show Monitor along with Big Wilson. Wow. And that's a great name, John Bartholomew Tucker. That's one of the coolest names ever.
Isn't it? I mean, it just made him sound important and cool, right? And a name can be very meaningful, of course, in the business. The other guy who wanted to be known as the Man of 1,000 Voices, Paul Frees, that didn't really stick because Paul, for whatever reason, he didn't do as many really, really famous and popular characters. I mean, you look at IMDb and what did he do? A few hundred, whereas Mel is literally credited with 1,000 different characters who had a name. But you know, the thing was that unique and interesting voices were big then. I don't know that's so much the case anymore, though. You had the third guy of that, of course, was with a name like Smuckers, it has to be good.
Mason Adams.
Exactly. And people only knew him from the Lou Grant show. But, of course, he was a giant in voiceover. God knows how much Smuckers paid him to do all those commercials.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, it gave a unique sound. The commercial stood out. Today, I hear one after another, and there's like 18 in a spot break. And they all sound pretty much the same, you know?
Yeah.
It's friendly guy next door. That sort of replaced all the really interesting voices. Hi, I'm your next door neighbor, and I've been paid to tell you about this product that's really wonderful. Why don't you try it too? You know,
it's kind of funny you mention that because remember on the West Coast here, and I even heard his voice on Baltimore radio when I was in Baltimore and Philly about 20 years ago on vacation. This guy goes, "The Big B Browning Mitsubishi." And I don't even know who the announcer's name was, but it was different. It just stood out the way he was so powerful and just kind of not even really enunciating as far as, your typical announcer, but just kind of like,
right.
"The Big B Browning," and just kind of like enunciating, very forcefully. And
there was a service in advertising that for a fee would track down who produced that commercial and, if possible, tell you the names of the people who made it. Meaning talent. We never had the money to subscribe to that, but we knew of unique voices. There was this owner of Hal Riney, who owned an ad agency in San Francisco, who had a really unique delivery of his own, and he was doing his own commercials.
Wow.
In Canada, the water is a little cooler. The beer is a little fresher. He would always do this downward slope at Avis. No, it wasn't Avis. It was another car rental company. But
Hertz?
They're Alamo Country.
Oh,
In Alamo, there are over 5,000. There are over 5,000 miles of roads in Alamo Country, and we have determined to drive down every one of them. So he did this very low-key, sloping emphasis, never hyped at all. He was the anti-hype announcer. The beer is a little fresher because the water is a little cleaner. Now, is that true? I don't know. But basically, Hal Riney became a thing. And if you were in advertising, you better know the name of that guy. Because I knew a guy who lost a gig as a producer because the client said, "Hey, we want a voice like Hal Riney's." And this producer, who came from the music side of the work, said, "Who's Hal Riney?" With that, they said, "We'll get back to you."
Oh, wow.
Because, I was often challenged by a client to know about something and what it costs to do. When early CGI was going on, a client asked me to do something like the Tiger for Exxon turning into a car going up a mountain, right? This was an early CGI effect.
Wow.
It's a car first, I think, and then it turns into a tiger. Put a tiger in your tank, right? And I said, "Well, sir, at your level, you're a local New York commercial. That's very expensive, that technology." And he said, "Oh, really? Well, my kid's got an editing system that can do that." And I began to realize you better keep up with your advertisers. Their kid may know more than you do. And so I realized I have to stay right on top of the latest technology, know what it costs. Is it doable at our level of, we're local Long Island and New York City TV, the 5 boroughs and so forth. Basically, my work was seen in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And I won some Telly Awards I'm very proud of. And
wow.
Big Apple awards for radio. And let's see, I got one from the Hollywood Radio TV Society, which we submitted an animation project to them, dancing tools for Gem Lumber Company in New York. Somehow, I got an award for doing the voice of all the dancing tools.
Wow.
Yeah, Gem Lumber's got the way to help you start saving money today. Make home improvements, repairs and such. When you do it yourself, it doesn't cost as much. All of those were different tools, right? So basically, that was a piece I was proud of. I didn't get to do a lot of animation, but I got to do that in New York City. So that was pretty cool. I've had an awful lot of fun in this work.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned. It's funny you mentioned all that stuff and getting to know things. When Jeff Edwards, who had mentioned earlier about being on 710 KMPC,
Jeff,
he had started hosting Starcade. He got the job after the original host, Mark Richards, was let go. And Jeff didn't really know much about video games when he got the gig, but he started reading books about video games, subscribed to video game publications, periodicals, and even started playing video games. So by the time he got really into the show, he knew the video games, was able to give contestants tips. Okay, what you want to do is you want to shoot at the ladder's right there because that'll get you extra points. Or you always have these, advice for the contestants before they actually played the game. And then Dennis James, a friend of mine, Adam Neediff, wrote a book called Okay. Dennis James' Lifetime of Firsts.
His signature.
That was a signature, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
nobody knows that today. You are a fountain of knowledge yourself, my friend.
Oh, thanks.
Nobody today knows Dennis James, but I know he was like the first TV pitchman ever, the greatest first ever announcer on TV.
In fact, I remember as a little kid watching the daytime Price is Right with Bob Barker on CBS,
Yes.
and then Channel 4 at night once a week had Dennis James hosting it. Same set, same announcer, Johnny Olson, same models, but just a different host. And it was just kind of really cool, having a different host at nighttime. And then suddenly James was gone after about 5 years. And what happened was somebody told me that his version of The Price is Right actually had more viewers than Bob Barker's the first 3 years. But then in 1975, when the daytime version went to an hour, that's when things turned around. The nighttime version started going down the ratings. Daytime went up. And they said, okay, CBS would pick it up instead for primetime syndication, but Bob Barker had to be the host. So they said, okay, and Dennis James's contract was up. But what was weird is that when Bob Barker took over nighttime, the ratings went down even further, even though they'd gone up in daytime. So there's just no rhyme and reason to things sometimes.
Well, of course, Bob had a certain feeling that he didn't want to be topped by anybody. And that's why when they were looking for another announcer, of course, for a time, our good, wonderful friend Randy West became a temporary announcer on The Price is Right. A great credit for my good friend of 20 years. And I'm so proud of him doing that. But he did many game shows, of course. But he kind of related to me that anybody more handsome than Barker would not be invited. And so Rod Roddy fit the bill. He's a huge guy, not really handsome, wonderful guy, wonderful fellow and all that. But, hey, nobody's going to have pinups of, him on the wall. Rod Roddy? No, I don't think so. And, of course, Johnny Olson was not a looker.
No.
He was the most fabulous game show announcer ever. But, he had not really the coolest look of any dude in Hollywood.
He had the black horn glasses well into the 70s when Wire Room came in to vogue.
Right. And the slick back hair like your old man would have and all this. Not coiffed by a Hollywood hair cutter. So,
and Randy wrote a great book on Johnny Olson. In case the listeners have never written, you got to read that book. It's got so much information, so many pictures, all this memorabilia that Johnny's widow Penny had given to Randy to use for the book. It's just an excellent read. It's a lot of pages, but you're going to be addicted to it, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. I got one of the earliest copies signed by Randy.
That's great.
And it's a fountain of information. It is just, And of course, I did have a small hand, in his current book of 1,000 pages or something. It's huge. It's a monumental volume. But I must say, Randy is a superb writer. As a writer myself, I do know that and recognize talent when I see it. And as a close friend of Randy's, and I'm so proud to be able to say that and not have him get back to me and say, "What are you talking about?" I volunteered. I said, "Look, you want somebody to sort of proof this?" He was going through the proofing process. I said, "Do you want another pair of eyes to look at it and maybe, spot anything that's a problem?" And he said yes. And so I got to see an early copy of it before the world. And it's one amazing book, that's for sure. What a read that is. So it's a plug for our good friend, our wonderful, talented friend, Randy West, who I sold a couple of my RCA 77DXs to.
Wow.
Because I no longer I bought them as I bought 4 of them originally. I still have my 77B1, which is a fabulous mic. It's the Art Deco of all time. It's so pretty. But anyway, I had 4 RCA ribbon mics, and it was an investment. I sold them 2 of them to Randy for more money than I had paid for them. But then I had also gone to Clarence to have them re-ribboned back in, 2011. Clarence Kane, who just retired, as I think I mentioned already, the re-ribbon master of all. But there's a new kid taking his place. Fortunately, that will go on. Been trained exactly by Enoch himself. What a mic collection he had. Oh my God. Worth probably 50 grand or 100 grand. I don't know. Some of the rarest RCA ribbon mics ever. But that's getting into technology. I'm a bit of a tech freak. I kind of like the tech aspect of this because of what it can do, and because of what it can do for my voice, which is not the thickest or heaviest ever, but it has served me well as that, frankly, the friendly guy next door voice that I was saying was too common. But, hey, any networks out there like Hallmark Channel, you want a metrosexual friendly, woman friendly voice? Today on the Hallmark Channel, you'll see yet another Christmas movie. It's just like the others. It's got handsome young people in it, beautiful women, and nice young dudes. And it's going to be on Hallmark Channel all day today under different titles. Tune in. Anyway.
There's all those jokes about your typical Hallmark movie and the parodies of those.
We're introducing here in March, we're introducing the Hallmark Christmas movies.
Which are probably being made right now in spring to be ready for the late fall, early winter. It's kind of like they say those models who get photographed in bikinis are actually in freezing cold weather because to be ready for summertime.
Oh, you reminded me. I wanted to meet Annette Funicello, my crush, when I went to Southern California. I didn't have any connection to her whatsoever, but boy, what a crush I had on that beautiful gal.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart when she passed away. But yeah, they shot the beach party movies in the winter. It was chilly down there on the beach. Randy knows the exact beach where they were shot. It's a very famous little cove.
Oh, that's right.
That Gidget was shot at, and probably every movie ever set on a beach. I know that today you probably can't get to the beach there because of all the property ownership where they own the beach too, and you're not allowed as a tourist to go down and visit there,
Oh, yeah.
That's too bad. But, it was a nice fantasy that you could hop in a jalopy with your other beatnik friends and go, live for a week at the beach. But that doesn't really happen, does it? Rich people do that. But now that's part of my disillusionment with Southern California, you see. I found that it was not a paradise. The smog bothered me. The earthquakes kept me awake at night wondering, am I going to have a building collapse on me?
Yeah.
That happened in Northridge in 97?
Actually 94. Yeah. They had some freeways that were not as earthquake proof as they thought. And fortunately, it happened in the overnight, but still several people did lose their lives. It would have been a lot worse had it happened during the daytime. I grew up here in Southern California. I remember I was not born when the Silmar quake happened in 1971. The first big one I remember was the Whittier quake in 1987. And that one, I was driving on the freeway. I went to school in Sierra Madre, and we were driving on the 210 freeway. We're feeling that the car was just kind of going this weird way, and we thought, oh, we've been having trouble with our car. Maybe it's just the car wheels are not working right. Wow. And my best friend, Brian, who is really scientific, he was the salutatorian of our class a couple of years later when we graduated high school. And he says, well, maybe it's this and that. And he was like deducing it scientifically. And then we found out after we dropped us off. Oh, there was an earthquake. My mom said I should have just taken you guys home, but I, like an idiot, left, and then we had to come back about an hour or two later. We were all outside on the field, even though we were up in the mountains of Sierra Madre, which probably didn't feel the effects of the quake as much as it was down below. We still didn't have school for about 2 days. I just remember that Kent Shocknick, who was the morning anchor on Today in L.A. in Los Angeles, which was on from 6 to 7 a.m. before the Today Show. I got to meet him a couple of years ago. He was very friendly, and he made national news when during the break he says, "Oh, we got an earthquake. I got to get under my desk right over here." People were making fun of him. I'm like, dude, he was smart. He was smart to get underneath his desk. Smart. Why are you making fun of him?
Where am I going to stand when I know it's a real quake? Where am I going to go? To a hallway under a door sill or something? But I also worried because I live on North Sycamore Street. There's a 1776 North Sycamore, which is near the Chinese Theater.
Oh, yeah.
I could walk to that very easily. And I was having nightmares that the whole thing was going to cave in. And I worried especially about the plaster above our in-ground and underneath the building swimming pool. I could just picture that plaster coming down and killing somebody in the pool one afternoon, you know. So I lived right across the street from that actors clubhouse, I guess, for New York actors who were a bit homesick and wanted to talk to fellow New York actors. That house, I don't remember what it was called, but somebody told me, oh, all the New York actors gather there to commiserate about how they miss, you know, the live theater scene and all that. And then I drove every day from Hollywood on the Sunset Strip to Beverly Hills, where I could barely afford to eat for lunch, so I often brown bagged it. But I was a regular pretty much at the Hamburger Hamlet on Rodeo Drive, where it was about $8 for a cheeseburger, and that's in $1972.
Oh,
yeah, you know, it was a fortune, but I knew I couldn't live anywhere near an efficiency apartment, a one-room apartment in Beverly Hills, was $600 that year. Well, I had one for $125 in Hollywood, which included all utilities. Today, that same apartment probably goes for $2,000.
Oh, at least.
It's crazy, you know. What the skyrocketing prices of real estate and all that. But anyway, I left there because of a number of issues that I had.
And we are talking with Chuck McKibben. He's the author of the book Mel Blanc, The Voice of Bugs Bunny, ... and me. Inside the studio with Hollywood's man of 1,000 voices. And next time, Chuck shares some stories about working in New York City, a very famous commercial that you would know if you had WOR Channel 9 on your cable system back in the 1980s, as well as some more great stories about Mel Blanc.